Hi everyone, it's Margaret here with 60 and Me. Hope you're doing well today. Thank you so much for being here. I have got a really fun video for you today. Now, 60 and Me is a community of women over 60. So most of us have 40 or 50 years of conscious memory of the past and how things have changed so much. I'm 72, so I've even got a little bit broader perspective. Now, we have a supporters group here on 60 and Me on Patreon. And the other day we were talking, just as we do, we chat. We have two live shows every week, and we just get together and chat about all kinds of things. But we were talking about first jobs and things that we did when we were in our 20s, 18, 19, 20. And it was such a great conversation that I wanted to sit down and do a video. Now, we talked about first jobs and technology changes, but as I started to think about this topic, I realized how much has changed in the past 60, 50 years. So I want to start, well, of course, there's the big things, right? So there's the big things that have changed in terms of technology, innovation, transportation, media, all that kind of thing. But it all started because I was reflecting on how I had worked at the BBC when I was in my late 20s. And I was explaining my first, that wasn't my first job, of course, but at the BBC, my job was in the newsroom. And I was a typist, and I was typing news manually on an Olivetti typewriter. Okay, this is like 40 years ago, but my job was to work with the reporters who would come to us and dictate their stories, and we would type them on the computer or on the typewriter, and then they would be sent to the editor. We'd come back and type them again. So I just how funny that was that just a very few years ago, I was typing on an Olivetti typewriter. I had absolutely no concept of the internet, what was going to happen with technology. And it reminded other people of the jobs that they had done, their first jobs. And some of them were just, so funny. I mean, of course, babysitting, clerical jobs were, where a lot of us started. My very first job was at a pizzeria. I was the cash person, at the cashier for a pizzeria. What did you do? What was your first job? I just found it so fascinating. And we talked about the fact that one of the great skills that everybody had was shorthand, stenography, being able to take notes and then type the letters or whatever documents. We also talked about fax machines. Now, I don't know whether, obviously most of the women that are watching this video understand what I'm talking about in terms of this transformation. I mean, when I was working in London, actually I was working at the BBC, and then on off days I worked as a temp. And one day I had to send a fax from London to, I think it was Tokyo. And I stood there with this piece of paper in my hand, and I thought, how on earth is this piece of paper going to get to Tokyo? How are they going to read this? And then, of course, they showed me how to use the machine, and it was like, wow. And that was like a life-turning moment. It was just so incredible. So anyway, we're talking about technology. Another story that I told, which I tell often, is so amazingly funny and unique in so many ways. And that is when I moved on from other jobs that I had in book selling and all kinds of things, I ended up working as a computer seller. I sold for Computer Center, which was a company in the UK. And I started off in admin, and then I thought, well, this isn't making me enough money. I think I'll do selling. So I took on a sales job, and I did pretty well. But my first computer that I ever sold to anybody was to Quintessence Fragrances. I don't know if you're still there and you hear me here, but it was a company that provided fragrances to the Body Shop. And so I sold them a computer so they could do their work. It was an IBM XT. And guess how large the hard drive was? It was a 10 megabyte hard drive. 10 megabyte. That was their idea of a very high performance computer. 10 megabyte. IBM did come out with a 20 megabyte a little bit later, and then of course the rest is history. But it was just such an amazing memory in my past to remember selling computers with a 10 megabyte hard drive. So maybe you've got some memories too of technology shifts that just blew your mind. And of course, when I was a little girl, I lived in Canada when I was, 8, 9 years old, and we had a phone that was a party line. In other words, we shared a phone with neighbors, and you had to pick up the phone, and if somebody was talking, you put it down again, and then you waited and picked it up, and it's free. and you use the line. So I can go back even further, and probably a lot of you can too, remembering situations in your childhood or in your early teens or teenage years where it was just so different. So I guess I wanted to start there, but of course there's a lot of other things that have changed. I mean, when I got my first mobile phone, do you remember they were like the size like this big? They were like, huge bricks. And I used that for a long time. That's all we had. And I reflect on the fact that my mom didn't even know what a cell phone was. She never would have known. We just went out to play, and her cell phone was calling us in for dinner. So just how much the world in just 50 years has absolutely shifted. Now, there's some things that I made some notes because I couldn't remember them all, what people think have been the biggest changes. Now, of course, makeup, hair. Do you remember the styles of makeup that you used to wear? Thick liner, blue eyeshadow, just, how much that has changed. And of course, hair, the bouffant hair. Does anybody ever go back to their high school, in the States, of course, their high school yearbooks and see what their hair looked like? I think I was the true bohemian because my hair was long and straight. I don't know what possessed me, but I just decided to wear long hair straight. Most of the women, or most of the girls in my class, 18 years old, were bouffant hair, buns and pulled back and back combing. I actually ironed my hair. Who else ironed their hair? If you had straight hair at any point in your life. I'm just laughing because these are just so great. These memories are wonderful. Okay, what else have I got? Who's ever been in a phone box in the last 10 years? In England, I mean, they're there as ornaments now. They even turn them into books, little book libraries in certain parts of the world. Like, you just don't use a phone booth anymore. Maybe you don't even have a landline anymore. Have you ever sent a telegram? Did you ever receive a telegram in your life? I mean, communication is the one area I think that has had the most dramatic evolution. I can't even think of some things that would be even more intense. Like, Bill Gates years and years ago, said information at your fingertips, and that is what has been created. You can go onto Bing or Google. You can actually find answers to everything under the sun. You don't even need to go onto the computer. You can use your phone and talk to this mysterious person called Siri. I mean, just think about some of the things that have happened. And then, of course, on top of all that, we've got the serious things like climate change. Things that we've done with our planet, that are really harming just the use of different technologies, and also fashion. Think about how much fashion has changed. We would buy, maybe 5 items of clothing a year, and now it's 50 a year or more. I don't know, people just have a consumer mentality that has evolved over the years. I remember, I was just thinking back to when I was a child, my mom used to knit everything. She used to knit all our clothes and make all my dresses. And I mean, not everybody was that, handy with knitting and sewing, but I remember Sears Roebuck. I mean, if you're in Canada or the States, do you remember ordering your winter coats and your boots from Sears Roebuck and have everybody else in the whole neighborhood with the same coats and the same boots? Because that's all you had. You didn't have Amazon or the online options that you've got today. What else am I remembering? Cars, of course. What was your first car? If you drive, most people are driving now. I mean, I remember my first car was a Chevy Bel Air. I think it was a 56 Chevy Bel Air. And it was blue, it was turquoise, which is actually one of my favorite colors. And it was just this huge boat. I mean, you literally kind of bounced in it. It was just massive. And I learned to drive. Thank goodness my dad was a mechanic. And so he taught me how to drive and use mirrors and be safe. But I had this 56 Chevy, and it was just fantastic. In fact, years later, lots of stories, I actually bought it's a 56 Chevy. And I had a house near Seattle, and I used to drive it around on the island there where we had a house, and it was just beautiful. But what was your first car? And look how much they've changed in the last, 30, 40, 50 years. It's almost like another world, isn't it? I think I've kind of reached the limit of what I can remember and sort of almost stand to recall. But I'd love to know, what was your first job? What was your first car? What would you say is the biggest change that you can acknowledge in your life since the time you were 20 years old? Now, this is going to be a fascinating conversation because, as I said, most of the women who are watching this video are over 60. So, maybe up until 20, we were kind of, not sort of conscious of the world around us. But after that, what changed for you? What were the things you did then that have changed so much today? What has had the most impact? Okay, I'm really excited to hear the comments to this video. So please leave them below and just feed on each other's comments. Come to the Patreon group if you would like to join our supporters group. We have these kinds of conversations all the time, and it's just nice to go beyond the day-to-day, the things that we talk about, fashion and beauty and relationships and downsizing and retirement, to go back to our childhood and our teen and early life years and reflect on how our lives have changed. So thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me indulge in my memories, and I hope that they inspired some of yours as well. But take very good care, everybody. Have a fabulous day. Enjoy this wonderful world we have created that has evolved since we were young. And just look forward to living in the present right now, this beautiful life we have. Okay, take care, everybody. Have a great day. We'll talk again very, very soon. Bye-bye for now.